I'm Van Sebastian here with my co-host S.A. Baz Collins, bringing you this week's Written on the Edge, Season 11, Episode 11. That's right, 11 interview. We are joined by Lauren Sanders to discuss their novel, Kamikaze Lust, which has enjoyed a renewal. So let's get to know our guest. Lauren Sanders is the author of the novel and audiobook Kamikaze Lust, which won a 2000 Lambda Literary Award and has been reissued in a 25th anniversary edition from Akashic Books. It's got a new foreword by Carly Moore, and we're looking forward to talking about it. That's our topic today. Some of Lauren's other novels include With or Without You, which was a finalist for the Lambda Literary Award, and The Book of Love and Hate, which the Advocate called a thrilling tale of espionage, family ties, sex, love, and betrayal. All of the best words right there. She is the co-editor of a really fun cultural pastiche anthology called Too Darn Hot, Writing About Sex Since Kinsey, and her short fiction, reviews, and journalism have appeared in various publications over the past decades. By day, Sanders runs editorial and digital content at a national foundation dedicated to education and the arts, and she has served on nonprofit boards, most recently at New York Writers Coalition, whose mission was to cultivate community through free and low-cost writing workshops throughout New York City and beyond. Awesome. Sanders was born in Queens and has lived most of her life between Brooklyn and downtown New York City, with a stopover during her formative years in Long Island. That's right, Long Island. She, see her book, With or Without You, but remember it's fiction, okay? These days she resides in the nation of Brooklyn and cavorts on the North Shore of Long Island, where on a clear day you might find her paddleboarding the Sound or hanging with her partner and staffy mix, Maverick. Lauren, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Sounds like you have led an amazing life so
Yeah,
far.
I'm like, girl, when do you sleep?
Oh, I'm an insomniac.
There you go. Best thing for a writer, right?
Yeah, right. There you go. Yeah.
So, Kamikaze Lust. You had an inspiration 25 years ago to tell this story. Can you tell us what that was before we dive into it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the time, I don't, I try to talk to some younger folks about this now, and it's really hard to fathom. But like where queer literature was then, and
Mm,
where writing about sex was in like what was quote unquote like real literature
right.
was then, and it wasn't something that was done, or you had to be like super famous and able to do anything to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And so like I started, was like thinking about, okay, what's going on? Like it was like the 90s and the 90s in New York City. It was kind of like that time that like everybody seemed like they were coming out as a lesbian and I was coming out as a lesbian. And
Me
so
too.
yes, yeah, see, it was all over. And so I kind of knew that I wanted to write about like identity and sex as a topic. And there was also I don't people from New York City who are like my age will probably remember this. Like there was this cable access show in the like 90s, like 80s, 90s, and I think it ended by the late 90s, but it was called The Robin Bird Show on Channel J in Manhattan. And she basically used to like it was like basically Oprah for porn stars, where like they would come on like when they were in town and they would like do interviews, and then like they would all do a dance at the end, and it was just like amazing, and you sort of couldn't believe like it was like me. I was like, wow, this is like happening on my TV. Like I don't have to pay for it or anything. And so that was kind of, and like Robin Bird was kind of like you'd see her around some places, like she was like a Fire Island person, and so it just like that too, like kind of got me fascinated with porn and porn stars, and like who are these people, like so those were kind of, and then somehow I threw my like crazy family, or like crazy families on top of that, Brooklyn, and so yeah, those all came together.
So, what is the plot, if I may ask?
So the plot is a journalist who is out on strike, like that her newspaper is on strike in New York
Okay.
City, and she ends up taking a job ghostwriting the autobiography of like a what at that time was called like a feminist pornographer,
Okay.
of like women who were trying to make pornography for other women. And at the same time, her favorite aunt is dying of cancer, and it's her like lifeline in a pretty dysfunctional, crazy ass family, and so there are these two kind of strands going on, and she's also having these confusing feelings about this woman who's her best friend, and so that sort of also flying in the background as well.
Nice. Well, and obviously it was well received and loved over the years if it's getting a renewal.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think, it's the same publisher who's just this amazing, they published all of my books. And again, it's like small presses. And I think the Lambda at that time was in the small press category.
It was.
Yeah, because they don't even have it anymore. But like at the time, like small presses were doing really interesting queer books.
Mhm.
And so that was,
Well, they were doing all of the books. The big publishers weren't touching them.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Unless again you were like really big, and
Yeah.
that is a whole other thing. So we were kind of like joking around, my publisher and I, about like, oh, 25th anniversary, let's have a party, let's just, and I was like, hey, maybe we should, let's republish this. And because I it's so different now, and I feel like there's so many queer writers, and I just felt like, oh, let's see if there's a new audience here, and just people who might not have known of the book back then. And so
Mhm.
so it's been really great.
That's fantastic. So have you reached younger audiences?
I mean, I hope so. Like it's I think, Carly Moore, who did the introduction, and she's got more of a, following than I do on Instagram. So I'm hoping, like that was part of it. And
Mhm.
and I think just trying to be out there. I've been trying to be out there more on social media, and to figure that out. Like, where are young people? I don't even know, but I hope so.
I don't
I
think they
hope
do either.
so. Yeah, I know. It's like I don't know. Like, where do you reach people? I feel like it's I went to, like, we used to go to bars,
Yeah.
right? I
Yes.
said that's like where you met people, and like you did. So I'm not quite sure
Yeah,
where.
no, we have often on the show talked about the loss of culture with the loss of the bars.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we used to, and like I have these wonderful like stickers that we made for the book. These weird
Oh,
read queer
awesome.
books, yes.
Yes.
And I will send these to anybody. Just like go on my website and
Nice.
fill out the little like form. I'll send them. But so I've been out a few times, just like trying to like hand these out in like little like events or things like that, and that's been sort of fun, just doing that.
Neat.
But. um,
So, with the original publication, was that your first foray into writing about sex, or had you been in that world before?
So I had published a couple of years before with two other writers an anthology called Too Darn Hot, writing
Right.
about sex since Kinsey. And that was sort of like us editing. It was the 50th anniversary of the Kinsey report. And so we kind of got together and started putting together this anthology. And it became like a cultural anthology of we had film scripts and like old personal ads from the 50s, from the year that
That's
Kinsey came out. So we were sort of like from like a cultural anthropological perspective, we were just like, let's kind of dig into, like our mores and our cultures around sex. And
yeah.
then I had published some stories in Best Lesbian Erotica like before that too.
Okay.
So yeah, it was definitely it was on my mind for sure.
But this was your first full length.
Yeah, first full-length novel. Yes.
Nice, nice, nice.
Yeah.
Well, I know it's been out in the world a while. What else would you like folks to know about it?
I mean, I would say it's a fun read. I was I
I
I
mean,
had
if
to.
your humor's on those pages, I know it's a fun read.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. No, I am, it's funny because like when we first came up with the idea, I was like, oh, let me read this and see if this is any good. Because obviously, if it's not good, we're just gonna shelve it away. And reading it, I thought, oh, this is pretty cool, and it still holds up. And yeah, maybe a couple little cringy things, but I'm gonna leave those in there. And
Did you change anything?
I changed a few. There were a few little things that I changed, but really not much. And just because we talk about certain things so much differently, that I was kind of like, okay, this doesn't need to be in here because it's just going to raise more questions than
Sure.
anything else. And then the other thing that was really great was doing an audiobook because basically, right, audiobooks didn't even exist back in 2000. It was like,
Hmm.
books on tape maybe, but
Right.
there was,
They were super expensive to produce, really hard to do, and yeah.
totally. So that was another thing that just felt really, really cool. And listening to the audiobook,
Of your story.
I swear, and by a really amazing audiobook editor, this woman, a narrator like Helen Laser, who she did Yellowface and this book called The Wedding People, like some really kind of literary, she's like very, very, known in like audiobook circles.
Hmm.
And it was just amazing. My partner and I were driving up to P-Town and we were listening to it together, and she was like, "You wrote this?" And I did. I swear, I really did. Like, it sounds so much better, like with her reading it. But yeah, so the audiobook's pretty awesome. I have to like give that a plug too.
Nice. Very nice. Bez, did you have questions?
Well, no, the thing that I find really interesting is, what was your approach then about how you approach sex scenes? Because sometimes you can write it as more inference rather than like in the nitty-gritty.
Yeah.
And sometimes what you don't say and the reader supplants in their head is more powerful than if
Yes.
you just spelled it out. And then did you ever, during the editing process, if you can put on your history hat here,
Yeah.
did you ever remember a time when you wrote something in the sex scene and then through the rewrites you just went, "What the hell was I doing here?" Like, did
Yeah.
body parts get placed in wrong places? And you're like, "Wait, come here, honey. We got to try this. I don't know if this works."
Right. This is where, yeah, it's like, yeah, that's such a good question. I mean, I think things more changed in the writing of it because psychologically it was kind of like, oh, no, 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 this is not how this would have gone, right? And, so it's just kind of like, okay, less so than, would this work?
Hmm.
Um, and because the way that I started writing sex, like, and it's such an interesting question because there was like a part, like some people might say that the book is erotica, but I don't think it's erotica because in some ways it's too thinky and you're in people's heads too much and there's too much characterization.
Hmm.
And that was like a lot of the rejections that I got on the book originally was like, wait a minute, this isn't really erotica. But is it lit fic? Like, we don't really know. Like, we don't know where to put this. It's not women's fiction. Is it queer fiction didn't really exist? So it was just kind of like, and but I was really adamant about like I'm not taking this. If I'm going to write a book about sex, the sex was going to be like explicit enough that you understand that it's about sex. So,
Right.
right? So like, yeah, I've done other, writing since then where I've been more oblique about what's actually going on, but I felt like, no, 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 it's all part of the character and this character's emerging psychology and how she uses pornography and this image of herself as like she invents a porn character for herself and like uses that to kind of come out, to kind of become sexually really like a person.
Right. Well, that's when I think it works really well is when the sex is not gratuitous, that it actually motivates the character and the story along. And I think that that's one of the reasons why when a lot of authors tend to shy away from writing the explicit sex scenes, they'll do a fade to black
Yes.
kind of thing to infer that it happened. But I think some of at least now, because I think with media the way it is, it's all in our face now. Porn is much accessible. So it's not quite the scintillating thing to be that edgy and right about it. But
Yes.
I think that now you go back the other way. It's more about the allure of sex that you want to write about to get
Yes.
people
Yes.
stimulated and
Yes.
let their brain do the heavy lifting. You
Right.
just give them, gently nudge them in certain ways to really kind of go with it. And I think that that's very interesting for writers to see the craft ebb and flow into that kind of momentum, don't you think?
I completely agree. And like you think about, I mean, it's like everything has changed so much, like how we think about sex has changed. Porn has changed. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
basically
Mm-hmm.
gone, right? It's like OnlyFans, and you
Hmm.
could get like anything you want on your phone, like without, I mean, you used to have to go into a video store, right? And like, show your face and like, okay.
I often tell the story. I took another gay boy in, and it was his first time ever being exposed to being that frontal about the sex thing. He wanted to go in the video booth. So I took him in there. I put the quarter in, it popped up, and he freaked and didn't know what to do. So he kept hitting the channel switcher, and I'm like, "Are you looking for I Love Lucy? What's going on here?"
Right. And you
He
can't
kept
run it
trying to
with your
change the
hands.
channel, and I'm like, "Dude, what do you think's happening here?"
Right, exactly. I mean, it's just like it is so different. And it's like, in some ways, right? Like sex is everywhere. And at
Yes.
the same time, people are a little bit like there are all these statistics that Gen Z is having less sex than
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
anyone.
They're no longer drinking. They're
They're
no
no longer
longer, yeah, yeah, yeah.
drinking. You're
Mm-hmm.
like, it's sort of this just we're in a strange time, I think, because it's like you can basically get anything anywhere you want, but at the same time, it's like people are a little more like conservative.
Well, no, I think here's the thing. I think I loved all the empowerment that women gained through really finding their sexuality. However, I think one of the things that's been let go of that I think women need to cultivate is one of the most powerful things they have in their arsenal, and that is the object of allure. They rather than putting it so face frontal, I think that if you hint at it, almost what you don't show is more enticing than what you show. And I think that people are starting to remember that that's what made Veronica sexy back in the day,
Yeah. Yeah.
because she was that blonde that had the one eye covered. You never quite saw her entire expression. It's that factor of allure. And for women,
Right.
that's the most powerful thing in their arsenal. And yet they seem to have put down that tool in their sexuality, and it's not as present as it used to be. It's so much more overt. And I think people hunger for a little bit more enticement and not so much here it is.
Yeah.
I think that that's kind of what's happening. Even a lot of I've been watching videos of women who have OnlyFans, and they've been talking about how they realize that they saw the allure of the money and the potential to be viral, but never really thinking, oh, what happens when I turn 40? Oh, wait, what happens if that part of it became, because in the beginning, a lot of OnlyFans would just really racy kind of pictures or poses and stuff. It wasn't the
Yeah.
overt sex. And then when they fell into that and it got more of that, then the women started realizing, wait a minute, wait a minute. Yeah, there's a part here that is getting out of hand, and it's also going to affect my future. And I think that that's the part, and it's even in gay porn and all. It's like it's gotten to a point where it's so overt that I think people crave a little, not necessarily for conservative reasons, but because they've taken the imagination of what our brains like to supplant in those kinds of situations,
Mm.
that it's taken some of the beautiful kind of essence that can be around those kind of sexy moments. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, oh my gosh, it's so complicated. I mean, I I think that that's so true just in the sense of, understanding what that line is between allure and sexuality. Okay, and I'm gonna have to bring it up like heated rivalry, right? Like, I mean, so much of those two gentlemen was about the the allure. And, I know I've heard people like comment about it. Well, it's
And
porn, porn, porn without porn.
hands
Like,
up,
yeah,
hands up for the intimacy coordinator, because they did a bang up job.
they-
Whoever their intimacy coordinator
yes,
is, that person deserves all the flowers and all the stars because they did their
yes,
work.
they really did. And it was sweet and
Yeah.
sexy. Like they really, really understood
And
that
they
sense of
brought
like,
back and in
yeah,
fact that they used the sex to actually show the evolution of the romance in it,
I
and it became more allure by the time you got to the end.
completely,
You weren't seeing overt scenes anymore. Yeah. And I
completely
think that's what people
right.
are hungry for.
Right.
They want to be a part of it because of that allure factor. They want to feel like they're in that moment. And when you take things out that they are expecting, it makes them want, it kind of draws them in. I mean, that's why I think
Yeah.
that's the essence here. We've lost the balance of how to play that line. I think because sex sells, they
Yes.
just throw it up immediately.
Right.
Whereas I think that if we find that tenuous balance in there, then it's a dance for
Right.
you and your audience that really draws them in. And I think that's when we can get sexy back in sex. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. What's funny, I've sort of, as like part of this whole re-release and issue, I've been spending a lot of time on Reddit on the like lesbian channel, the women loving women, sapphic, book channels, and
Hmm.
just to sort of see like, okay, so what are people reading and how are they reading this? And like would my book, and I put, some like promos for my audiobook up there, which was great, and some people have been very welcoming. But it's so interesting because everything is so specific. Like people know exactly what they want and like how spicy. So there's like the pepper scale, and oh, this has 2 peppers, but like this has and then some people are like, do you have to ruin a really good love story by like putting all this sex in? And then others are like, give me the 5 peppers, and but they're really able to sort of navigate that in a
Hmm.
way that like and have control over it in a way that you know I don't know, like I think is a good thing, but there's
Well,
but there's a
I,
part of me too that thinks it's like kind of damaging because
well,
sometimes I yell
yeah.
like right.
Right. I mean, it's everything from genre tags to, scale ratings like that. Yes, they're good because they help people find the books they want, but they also silo people into those books only, and they never discover anything
Completely,
outside of their little silos.
Yeah,
It's a
and I
completely.
double-edged sword for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that for our authors, the three of us being writers, I think part of it is we need to realize we have the big 64 crayon box to write those scenes. Don't limit yourself to just the 8 crayons.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It's
Right.
like we can paint, and especially as queer people, we can
Right.
paint
Mhm.
really, really. I mean, just the fact that there are women now who go, men can do that face to face. I didn't know that was a thing. And it's like, but that's kind of the whole thing. You have to
Yeah.
use all 64 crayons. Use that magenta. Use that silver crayon that was just so bold when we got them as kids. Use the things
Totally.
that give us all the colors. And
Totally.
and in that you can create the allure. You can create that line.
Speaking of
Mhm.
crayons, and in the interest of time, I want to hop onto the last topic you gave us about the state of the arts and art education for kids.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it was more, I think this was more, I feel like I gave you this a while ago. I mean, it was more sort of like, you know, about writing because I was on the board of this wonderful organization that unfortunately like suffered the fate of a lot of nonprofits, small nonprofits, and is no longer around. But it was basically about free writing workshops for both kids and also adults, and in places where people are not necessarily writing. So like, prisons and like community centers and homeless shelters, and just to be able to use writing as a powerful tool. And I think no, this is super important for all of us. And I think for kids particularly,
Yeah.
to be able to just have an opportunity. I mean, you're a teacher, right? Like,
Well, so can I share a
mhm.
story of hope then during this time?
Yeah, yeah.
I was subbing for a social studies class, and I was on day two of a project the teacher had given them, knowing she was going to be out on the day I was there. So she started them on day one. I got to finish them on day two. The project was World War One. So think about high school students in World War One. Already there's a massive disconnect, right? The writing project was to write 15 Instagram posts with appropriate pictures in the voice of the person posting. And she gave them topics. They had to write three on the technology, three on being in the trenches, three on the politics. These kids were eating it up because they
Amazing.
loved Instagram. They were
Yeah,
writing, but it was a really good writing exercise because, there's a limited number of characters they're allowed to use.
right.
So they had to be concise and informative, and that was the assignment. Be concise, be informative, be accurate about your statements. Other than that, find the voices of the people in World War One and have fun with it. Every single student in that room was engaged. The, there was a
Yes.
little gay boy in the room who came up to me and showed me his posts, and all of them ended with hashtag, what was it, slay the trench. And he's like, "Do you know who I'm writing from? Whose voice I'm using?" I'm like, "Probably a Kardashian, but I don't know which one." And he was like, "Oh." It was amazing. But
That's
the
amazing.
teachers that I've encountered are redoing curriculum to reach the students to give them those skills in a way that they embrace.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important. And like one of my early journalism jobs was I worked for a news service for young people. And like the younger ones, like the 8 to 12 or so were the reporters, and like the older ones were the
Neat.
editors. Yeah, it was super cool. And it was again like before like the internet basically. So that we would publish on at the Amsterdam News, up in Harlem. And but the kids, they would go around with their microphones and
Yeah,
interview other kids and interview politicians. And, we'd go to all the political conventions, we would get invited.
yeah,
And it was just to be able to see that moment
yes.
when somebody understands, like a young person understands that they can do something
Hmm.
and that they can create something
Hmm.
it's just magic. It's absolute magic.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's like what you're saying, like, yeah, like you can bring everything in your head like the Kardashians to like history. Like I mean, that's you and that's your creation and your
yeah,
voice, which is like the same thing as writing.
yeah,
It's like, yeah, the most, I mean, the best thing about, for me anyway, like when I read someone's writing, it's not necessarily like that they're a beautiful writer or their style or that, but it's like, are you like a voice? Is there an
yes,
individual voice and a mind at work here? Because that's really the thing.
yeah, oh yeah. All right, I know we've covered a lot of ground. Is there anything about your writing, whether it's Kamikaze Lust or something else, that you wanted people to hear today that we didn't ask you about?
No, I think you really asked some great questions. And
Awesome.
yeah, I hope new people can find the book. And
We'll get it out. We'll get the word out on our
yeah.
end.
So burning question in people's minds. When's the sequel?
That's always right. Like, oh, you're in a sequel.
I mean,
Yeah,
come on, girl. You got to hustle. Got to get it
I
out to
know.
Netflix. Come on, let's go. Let's go.
It's right, right, right. Uh, yeah, I actually I have a book that I just finished, and it's out now, like kind of making some rounds, like, but it's not the sequel, so okay, all
Okay,
right.
well, I'm just
Yeah,
saying. I'm just putting it out there.
you give me a job, give me a
There's a,
job.
you know.
Give me a job.
Well, that's just it. Take your main character from Kamikaze Lust, and where is she in 25 years?
Right, right, right.
Because here's your chance to also write for the older queer audience.
Oh, there you go.
Anyway, on that
And give
note,
the youngins a point to look forward to as they age, because a lot of them don't think about it. But if
Right.
you write, it's like Grace and Frankie. When those two women did
Yes.
that show, it gave
Yes.
younger women are like, oh my God, I can have a full life even in when I get older. And
Yeah.
just writing those kinds of things can open doors for the younger, queers that are coming up behind us and younger kids
mhm,
to really see the longevity of what's possible still. And I think
Yeah.
and it also kind of decouples the ageist kind of mentality. It starts to take it apart,
Completely agree.
Yeah.
So, are you ready for our get to know you questions?
Yeah, sure.
Take it away, Baz.
Okay, before we get started, just wanted to do a quick shout out that if you like what we're doing here, remember to like, subscribe, comment, do all the things. If you want to support us, because there are costs involved with us keeping this running, it's now in our 11th season of a weekly episode. So Vance and I have been at this for quite some time now, but there are costs still involved. So if you want to help support us by supporting our queer content creators for our audience, please go to patreon.com/rope podcast or buymeacoffee.com/rope podcast for a one-time donation. And the cheapest way to do it, because we know times are tough, if you join our membership on YouTube, for 99 cents a month, you get watch along versions of Albert's and my reactions to queer media. And, that's another way that you can help us out for less than $1 a month. So,
And following up on Lauren's comment about Heated Rivalry, you guys just finished that.
yes, we just finished that. The first episode is already up. And as authors, I think our take is a bit different from some of the other reactors. So, worth checking out. All right, all of that out of the way. Let's get into the weeds. What book, film, or piece of art has had the biggest influence on your writing style?
I've been thinking about this a lot, and it's not a single book or piece of art or any of that. I feel like I'm just such a culture of television and movies and living in New York City and like just street culture. And so I think that in some ways has had such a big influence on so much of what I write. And yeah, I would say
It's an
yeah.
amalgamation of all of that.
Yeah. I think that's really like if I were to say like what a through line is in terms of like influences, it's more they're more cultural than they are literary.
That's fair.
Okay. Okay, excellent. All right. What fictional/historical character would you invite to march with you at a pride parade?
So this is so funny because I kept thinking about like fictional characters that I love, and they're all so depressed and depressing and like,
Well, maybe they need a party, I mean,
So I came up with, there's a recent book out called Pterodactyl by Matilda Bernstein Sycamore, and if you haven't, she'd be great on your show, by the way. And her main character, Pterodactyl, is this club kid from the '90s, and just has such a way with fashion and is sweet and funny. So I think she would know how to dress me and would know what drugs to bring, and we would have a lot of fun. So,
well, there you go.
so I'm
There
gonna go
you
with
go.
that. Yeah.
There you go. Okay. Well, if you slash your protagonist had to survive a gay bar karaoke night, what song would you or they belt out?
Am I allowed to curse?
Yeah, your show, your
Um,
episode.
Okay, "Fuck the Pain Away" by Peaches. And and I
Okay.
just I just saw Peaches recently and she did that song and it was just like mind-blowingly wonderful.
Nice.
Excellent. I love that. All right. What's a place, real or imagined, that feels like home to you and why?
Yeah, so good. I think you know, I'm much more into the imagined spaces of home, and because I do believe you really can make that anywhere. So to me, it's, if I've got, people around me and I have really good coffee and there's some nice scenery or really cool scenery, then I'm home.
Nice.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. What's the strangest or most unexpected place you've ever found inspiration for a work of yours?
Um, so the statue of David in Florence, which could be super, super cliche, right? But I'm a lesbian, and it's a story about clothing.
Oh,
Neat.
okay. Okay. Get that shirt on.
Cover yourself.
What the hell, dude?
Put on some pants.
Okay. Which themes or motifs do you find yourself? I just had a flash that how odd it is that we just accept Porky Pig and Daffy Duck without ever thinking about pants. And yet we put them on a mouse. What the hell?
Right.
I was actually banned Donald Duck for a while for not wearing pants. One of the Asian
Really?
nations did for a while. They did
Really?
not. They were not. They were not happy about the fact that he did not have pants.
I just thought it was fitting for what we've been talking about. Okay. Which themes or motifs do you find yourself returning to again and again in your work?
Sex, death, identity, popular culture, music.
Excellent. Okay. And finally, what's a piece of LGBTQ plus culture, music, film, art, or history that never fails to inspire you?
Um, Diving into the Wreck, the poem by Adrienne Rich. Every time I read that poem, it just takes me somewhere else, and it's such an amazing poem. So everyone should read it.
All right. Excellent. Well, you made it through our list. Bravo.
Bravo. So you tease that you're working on a new book. This is where I usually ask what's coming up next.
Yes, yes. So I have just finished. I mean, it took me years and years and years. These novels take me a long time because, as I'm sure you know, like having a job also. So finally finished all the revisions a couple months ago, and so I've got it with some people who are looking at it now, trying to figure out where does this thing go, and so that's kind of the stage that I'm at, and then kicking around what's next.
Nice.
So yeah.
Do you have anything else on the calendar for the 25th anniversary of Kamikaze Lust?
I think nothing like no, we have no other formal appearances right now, but just doing a lot of, I'll be more on the socials and that sort of thing, still doing that. And oh, I forgot to mention too, we one of the cool things that I did was I did a playlist for Kamikaze Lust at this one of these
Neat.
sites that somebody the guy is named his I think it's Book Notes is his site, and he has authors do their own playlists. So I'm going to send that to you so you have it because
Yeah,
it's
Excellent.
very,
Yeah,
very,
we'll
Yeah,
definitely
we'll
include
put
it.
it on the page with your
it's
episode.
very
for sure.
cool. Excellent.
All right. Well, where can people reach you? What's the best social for reaching out to you and saying, "Hey, I read your book," and
Yeah, I think Instagram is great. Li Sanders 99. My website is laurenisanders.com.
and if they come to your website, they get stickers.
Yes, and you just fill out the little form, giving your address, you will get a sticker.
Awesome. Lauren, do you have any final words of wisdom?
Oh my gosh. I
I got to be smart too.
wisdom. I mean, I have no wisdom. I just just like I feel like people keep writing. That's it. Just humans keep writing. That's all I have to say.
Love it. Love it.
That part.
All right, we would like to extend a huge thank you to Lauren Sanders for joining us and for helping us with the scheduling issues we had getting this episode together. Lauren, thank you so much.
Thank you guys. This was really, really great. So much fun, and I appreciate it.
And this isn't a one-timer, so you
No.
got anything else you want to talk about? You just sign back up, girl. Right?
Excellent.
Ready.
Excellent.
Tell us about
Okay. Okay.
All right, fans and friends, we at Written on the Edge are proud to introduce you to new media by queer content creators. If you enjoy learning about new artists or hearing our thoughts on entertainment media, please like and subscribe so you get the alerts for new episodes. Our show was produced by Rogue Ravens Media. For our disclaimers, links to social media, our listen stations, or to sign up as a guest, visit www.roguepodcast.com. Tune in next week for your queer media fix.
Adios.
Oh, what's that? Closing time. The bums rush in melody, dear.